Hello and welcome to the SBK Betting Podcast. As you will have noticed, we're without Jess Stafford this week, so I'll be sitting in the host chair here in sunny Saudi Arabia. But fortunately, we are joined by my trusty colleague Ross Miller to run us through all the action this weekend. Hopefully, plenty of winners mentioned on this podcast in the next 25 minutes or so. Ross, how are you doing? Are you looking forward to Cheltenham?
I am TC. I'm slightly underwhelmed by the card. I have to admit. But I often think something will pop up at Cheltenham. I mean, last year it was Sagina, wasn't it? I mean, that was a devastating performance. So hopefully something will pop up. But on first look, there wasn't a huge amount to get excited about. I don't think, apart from the fact, obviously, when Constitutional gets on track, that's a good Saturday, isn't it? Really.
It is, yeah. We were both there last year, if my memory serves me correctly. Are you going this time around?
No, sadly not. Mrs. Miller's doing a lot of work away at the moment, so I'm on dad duty at home and watching it on TV. But it's good. The kids enjoy the racing, so they won't be squealing too much if I put that on for a minute.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Before we get into the race previews, we have four of them this time around, as well as the Napa Next Best. I'll quickly recap some of the results from last week's podcast. I put up Charlotte's Web to win the Winter Oaks at Lingfield. She won at 5-2. Absolutely loved that race. And I was also with Dedicated Hero in the Rossington, who won at 6-1. Plus, both myself and Ross said that John Bon was an absolute certainty in the Clarence House, and that proved to be correct. Ross, I thought that ride on John Bon and the performance, of course, from the horse himself was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm still amazed, TC, that people seem so entrenched to just say, yeah, but what did he beat? And yeah, he beat an 11-year-old, but he beat him so comfortably and he just looks so professional now. I'm absolutely adamant that if he'd been ridden like that in the Arcade, he'd beaten Al Fabiola. I've got no doubt about that whatsoever. And I don't buy this. Cheltenham was not his track. I think he's had excuses when he's been beaten there. I think it's going to take a very, very good horse indeed to beat him in the champion chase.
Yeah, 16 victories and three runner-up efforts from 19 career starts. I mean, he's the model of consistency, a top-quality animal, and we should all put respect on John Bond's name. Okay, time to move on to the upcoming racing this Saturday. SBK is offering a 20% Saturday racing ACCA boost. So if you like playing accumulators, which I'm sure plenty of you do, you can take advantage of that across the cards. You do need 4 legs to qualify for this boost, and you have to opt in. So make sure you do that on the app. The first race we're going to preview is the Grade 2 International Hurdle. That'll be run at 3 p.m, of course, at Cheltenham. Of course, this won't be a betting race for many, will it? I mean, Constitution Hill tops the market at 1-9. It's around 10-1 bar him. Ross, I presume we're just both anticipating him to cruise around and win on the bridle.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I mean, it'll be uncomfortable watching, won't it, for connections? Because the only thing that can happen is for it to go wrong. He's a super horse. He's miles better than these. It's a shame Lossy Mouth doesn't come over. I don't know whether that entry was put in there to try and perhaps get Nicky to do something he didn't want to do. I think Willie Mullins is quite good at the games like that. But of course, with the weather, it'd have been very dangerous to travel her anyway. So it was never really on the cards. But yeah, he's got to cant around, show he's fit and well, and come out of it crucially next week will be the time I'll be holding my breath for. There's no niggles, no bumps. But it's good to see him on track. And I would just point out, these people that like to say, oh, Nicky will put him away till March. I was fully expecting that. This shows he runs them when they're ready and when they're right and when it's what he believes the right thing to do for them. So yeah, I'm pleased to see him out again.
Of course, from a viewing spectacle, we are anticipating he's going to win, as we both talked about there. Do you think we're going to learn anything from this race? Obviously, he's against much inferior opposition, but I suppose seeing him back on the track again will increase his fitness ahead of the Cheltenham Festival.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that went under the radar for the win at Christmas was that he clearly had a rushed preparation. And that's not to say that I didn't expect him to come back. I did. But it was more the lameness after that gallop at Newbury that was the concern because he missed time for that, had to be rushed back forwards. The gallop was clearly designed to bring him forwards fitness wise, and that clearly wouldn't have done because he didn't do much. So I'm expecting a more fit Constitution. Whether we'll see that, I'm not sure. He's quite professional, isn't he? He looked pretty zippy at Kempton, so I'd like to see him do the same thing again. But I do think that will probably mean that they can give him a slightly easier time into Cheltenham. Won't need to take him away for a racecourse gallop. I know that Michael Buckley is just dead set against those now because every time they go away, something goes wrong. So, yeah, hopefully just see him show that zip, jump. Perhaps wouldn't like to see him let fly. Took flight the one down the back, didn't he, at Kempton? And perhaps don't want to see that because he did that when he won his champion hurdle. So maybe a little bit more measured at his hurdles. That might be a chance for Nico just to educate him a bit because he's not going to have to go into the red with him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch him just pop round and hopefully step forward fitness wise.
Yeah, from a betting perspective, obviously neither of us, I imagine, are going to play in this race, but we are both siding with Constitution Hill for what it's worth on the podcast. We'll move swiftly on to the Grade 2 Cleave Hurdle. That's at 3:35 again at Cheltenham. Another relatively small field, but a much better punting opportunity in this contest. Crambo currently tops the market around 15 to 8 at the time of recording on Thursday morning. Second favourite strong leader at 5 to 2, and it's 4 to 1 bar with Gal Road holding that third position in the market. Who do you like here, Ross, and where's the value?
Um, well, I think probably the value isn't with Crambo or Strong Leader, and I think they've both got they're good horses. They're good Grade 2, minor Grade 1 horses, but I think they've both got questions to answer around this track. I mean, I think Ollie Murphy's on record as saying that he doesn't think Cheltenham is Strong Leader's track. I think it's entirely sensible, given the weakness of the division, to come and confirm that suspicion. He was pretty disappointing last time at Ascot in the long distance hurdle, won by Crambo, but he's since had his wind tinkered with. He also had his back operated on, or not operated on, injected. He clearly suffers with his back a little bit, and he isn't always a fluent jumper, and back is really crucial to jumping, getting the back up and over in the air. So I'm expecting him to run better here. He might not need to run to his best to take a hand in this, such is the sort of weakness in it. Crambo is just never a horse I fully got on board with, and I don't think he was really seeing the trip out all that strongly at Ascot last time. There were certainly horses finishing stronger than him. Again, I'm not convinced this is his track. And again, you have to say that Fergal O'Brien is yet to really shake off the shackles of a sort of slightly in and out season. He's running horses that are presumably scoped well and had their bloods done. Crambo ran perfectly fine at Ascot, but just given the price, want to look elsewhere. So the one I'm going to come down on is Botox Has for the Moors. He's not had his ground this season so far. He's definitely a better horse on softer ground. There is a case to say that maybe he's also a better horse on a flatter track like the other two, but he's a bigger price. He's a double figure price. He wasn't beaten all that far in this last year, around about 6 lengths. That was on good soft ground. It turned into a dash, if you remember, up that hill, and remarkably, Noble Yates came out on top in a sprint, which surprised everyone. I think if this is run at more end-to-end gallop, which I think it will be with Crambo in there, slower ground, I'm expecting the rain to arrive on Friday and turn what's currently good to soft ground slower. I think he's a good each-way play, given the fact that there's potential for the two ahead of him in the market to vastly underperform.
Ross looking for some value there with Botox Has for Gary and Josh Moore. I'm going to be with Strong Leader. I understand what you say. Cheltenham definitely isn't his track, but I do like the wind operation since his last run, and obviously what you talked about there, the back injection. Didn't know anything about that, so that again gives me a reason to excuse him. His disappointing performance last time when I was with him. This is just a very substandard renewal, in my opinion, on figures. Generally, to win a Cleeve, you have to run to a mark of around 155 to 157, and that's in the weak renewals, not in the good renewals where we've seen an RPR of 165 plus win this kind of race. So generally, you need 155. Looking through this field, there just aren't many horses in here that can run to that rating. So I tried to find a horse that's done it before. Strong Leader was the one I came down on. 2 starts back, he ran to an RPR, I believe, of 159. So he's proven his quality, and he's very much capable of winning a race like this. Look, you do have to excuse that run last time, as already talked about, but there were reasons behind it. And as mentioned so many times on the podcast by myself, Ross, and Jess, you can always excuse a horse one bad run. If Strong Leader gets back to his best, then I think he's got a good chance. And yeah, this might not be his favourite course, but I think he probably should have won this race last year when he sprinted for home late and only just got done finishing third behind Noble Yates. Okay, we'll move on to Doncaster next, and we'll discuss the Great Yorkshire Handicap Chase. That's at 3:15 p.m. It's a wide open market. This is much more your bag, Ross, I'm sure. SBK traders go 5 to 1 the field in here with the Changing Man as the current market leader. No favourite has won this race since 2015. The last 4 winners have been 40 to 1, 40 to 1, 16 to 1, 16 to 1. A nice and easy one for you, Ross.
Yeah, and I don't think a favourite will win it this time. I think the Changing Man's been really unfortunate. He's sort of creeping up the handicap for running well, but not yet landing one. You couldn't begrudge him if he does land this. I thought this was really difficult, TC. I know Richard Hobson's really happy with Dot Pick Me. He ran well for me at a big price last time. He's not going to be as big this time, and he doesn't have a £7 claim off his back, just a £5 claim. So that slightly put me off him. The one I came down is Snipe for the Skeltons. Now, he doesn't win very often, and I think he's a little bit of a tricky ride, but he's looked in good form so far this season. Both starts at Carlisle. He should have won first amount over 3 miles and half a furlong, butchered the last, and that just put him on the back foot, and he could never quite get back up. But I thought it was a really promising run, was really well back then the next time over the track, over an extra 2 furlongs, again ran really well. Just struggled by a length and a quarter to concede £4 to the horse that went on to win the Welsh National, Vel Dancer, who's a real strong stayer. And again, I think Harry Skelton perhaps thought he'd pick him up easier than he did. Both those runs are on good to soft ground. Gets back on soft ground now, which is what his last win came on at Aintree. He is £10 higher than for that win, but this track will suit. He'll stay really well. I expect it to be run at a good end-to-end gallop. Hopefully that will suit Harry Skelton, being able to smuggle him into the race. Skelton's still going along really well. I thought he was a solid each way selection in a really trappy race.
Snipe is currently 14-1, and as you say, Dan Skelton team is flying right now, 21% over the last fortnight. A quick word on the changing man as well. His last two efforts have been solid, and he got beat by Victorino last time in a race that's working out nicely.
Yeah, working out really well, and I expect him to run his race again. I just think that the way he runs, that sort of slightly prominent style, does mean he does a lot of work early in his races and perhaps doesn't give him an awful lot left in the tank to repel the closers. If they can get to him, and he might be, there's not a horse of the class of Victorino in this, or probably isn't a horse of the class of Victorino in this, and it might be good enough, but he's just creeping up the weights, going to the tank quite often. I think he has hard races each time as well because he's always there or thereabouts. So I just, at the prices, wanted to look elsewhere.
Yeah, the same for me, really. I thought he was a horse to beat, the changing man, but equally, I didn't want to take 5-1 or maybe even shorter come post time. I'm going to be with forward plan in here. I put him up for the 3 mile handicap chase here before Christmas. I thought he shaped very well, but he did what forward plan does, and that is get outpaced at a crucial stage before staying on well in the latter part of the contest. I would bet him each way. Now, I'm not a massive each way punter, but around 11-2, 6-1, I think that's a fair price in a race like this. He's a horse that's perfect to bet each way because he's super consistent. He stays very well, and because of his running style, he does generally pick off the tired rivals. With the course form to his name, forward plan will be my pick in here, but it's a super wide open contest, as Ross has already alluded to. The final race that we'll cover individually in this podcast before we go into Napa Next Best is the SBK sponsored Solerina Mares Novices Hurdle at Fairyhouse on Saturday, scheduled for 1:38 p.m. Willie Mullins has won 6 of the last 9 renewals of this contest. Will he do it again?
I mean, the percentage call is yes, isn't it? I just wanted to try and be a little bit different and not just put up a Willie Mullins horse in the Solerina Hurdle. I think Aurora Vega's got good chances, but she has got to concede weight all around. The first one off my list was Mystical Goddess. I thought she was really good on debut and then was disappointing last time. She was just far too keen. That was over 2 miles. Going to get slower ground here, 2 mile, 2 furlong. I just don't think she's going to go about this the right way. So the one I came down on was Mungibello, who chased home Aurora Vega last time, despite barely jumping a hurdle. In the Racing Post, it lacked fluency. Well, I mean, that is the overstatement of the season. She barely jumped a hurdle. She absolutely butchered the second last, which put her on the back foot. Did quite a lot of work to close up to Aurora Vega. It would be hard to say that she was closing on Aurora Vega at the line, but she was certainly still staying on, as was the winner. But she gets a £5 pull now for 2 lengths. She gets slower ground. That might just help her jumping if they don't go quite so quick in early stages. JJ Slevin's riding really well on this link up with Isaac Swade and Simon Menier. Slower ground, extra bit of trip. She just looks a little bit of value against the favourite, who does look like she's got everything in her favour and put that blip on her penultimate start well behind the last time.
Yeah, she's still unexposed as well after the 6 starts. So there is a huge potential for Mongibello to improve. I thought it was a very difficult race to assess. And to be honest, I don't have a pick in here. I'm going to take the hosting duties and bypass one of these main featured events. But Willie Mullins does have 3 runners. Brian Hayes is booked on Baby Kate. There are no jockey bookings for the other 2 just yet. Obviously, Aurora Vega's got the reputation. Fancy Girl is more of an unknown quantity. Do we anticipate Paul will be on Aurora Vega?
Yeah, I did think it was slightly strange that having jocked Brian Hayes up on one, that Paul wasn't then jocked up on one of the other 2. So whether that means he's leaving it slightly later or whether it just means it's typical Willie Mullins and they knew that Brian was riding from some way out and Paul hasn't yet decided. I think you'd probably find it hard to get off Aurora Vega, wouldn't you, given her connections, given how well she ran last time. I think that would probably be his pick.
Yeah, I do too. I think she'll probably be a short price favourite in here. It's fantastic to see SBK continuing their brilliant sponsorship over in Ireland. And, that's only going to continue hopefully throughout the whole rest of the jump season and maybe into the flat season too. SBK are offering a 25% winnings boost on the SBK sponsored Solerina Mares Novices Hurdle on Saturday. So if you like Mongibello and Ross has convinced you that way, or if you like Willie Mullins' horses and hopefully he continues his winning spree in this contest, make sure you bet with SBK, and then you can get that offer and get a better return than you would have otherwise. Okay, that's 4 classy races that we've covered in great detail. Now it's time for the Napa Next Best, the moment that everyone's been waiting for, Ross, where we give our most confident selections over the weekend, specifically Saturday. You can go first.
Well, I hopefully get a run for my money from some of these this week, TC. It was pretty poor last time with Ansan not really there to take part and No Tango tipping up fairly early. So I've gone to Doncaster for both the 205, the River Don. I think this looks a really good chance for Western Knight to get a bit of graded victory here. He's really impressed me over hurdles, having been pretty moderate in 2 bumper starts. Didn't win a bumper, which is quite unusual for a Joe Tizard sort of horse. But looked really good. Won at Utox over 2 mile 4, stayed really strongly on that occasion. Then went to Ascot, beat Excello for Nicky Henderson. Now that form has taken a bit of a knock in that Excello doesn't look as good a hurdler as he is chaser. But I thought Western Knight was well on top over 2 mile 5 on that occasion, drawing right away. He then went to Cheltenham over 3 miles, and despite the fact he was up in trip, I think it gave him less of a stamina test because it turned into a bit of a dash, won by a David Cotton trained French raider who perhaps had track position. He was more prominently ridden. Western Knight was settled to get the trip. It turned into a bit of a sprint, and he ran with real credit, finished runner-up, closing all the way to the line. I think this will be more of a stamina test. Joe Tizard still knocking along really well at 18%. This is the time of year where I start to look to oppose Joe Tizard's horse because I think their form tends to drop off. But at the moment, they're hanging on to their form pretty well. They've got a new gallop that might be helping. So I thought Western Knight would win the 205, the River Don, and then the 130. Storming Crossgales, who's now with the Pogsons, having moved from Tom George when owned by the Noel Feely Racing Syndicate. He was, of course, in Dinston winner last time and absolutely hosed up. Prior to that, he won nicely as well off a fairly low mark. They'd inherited a well-handicapped horse. I just happened to see an interview of that at Pogson where he said that he turned up with a brief that they'd used a lot of different kit on him, and he said bit by bit he stripped it back, and the more he takes off, the happier the horse seems. I think they've really figured him out. I often felt with Tom George, they didn't really know what his trip was and what his ground was. I thought he was a 2 mile horse on slow ground. He gets that here. He's up to a mark of 126, but on his best form, he's still pretty well handicapped. I don't think Adam Pogson's got to the bottom of him yet, and I think he's got a smart horse in his hands. There's plenty in here that are exposed. I think he's got every chance on slow ground of putting in another very good performance.
So Western Knight is Ross's nap in the 205. I think he's around 7-2 at the time of recording. And his next best is Storming Crossgales in the 130, both at Doncaster. Thank you very much for those, Ross, and best of luck this week. I'm sticking to Cheltenham for both of mine. My nap is going to be a Rocco in the 150. Look, this horse let me down last time, and I have got a bit of a tendency to try and get compensation with horses that do this, but hopefully I'm not too biased in this regard. Look, I thought he had every chance going into the race last time. Came to grief early on. It wasn't really his fault, albeit he didn't jump overly well. He's the clear class play in the 150. Yes, he carries top weight of 12 stone, but he's a graded horse running in a handicap, and hopefully he can finally show his A game on Saturday. And if he does, I think Iroko will outclass them in that race. He's around 3 to 130 at the time of recording, and I do think that's really good value. My next best also comes at Cheltenham. That's in the 1240, and it's going to be Resplendent Grey for Ollie Murphy, who is around 4 to 1 at the time of recording. This gelding has developed into a really nice novice chaser. He didn't show much over hurdles, but he was obviously a longer term prospect, and he didn't treat those obstacles with any kind of respect. Whereas now over hurdles, he's jumping a bit better. That being said, he can get deep into 1 or 2, which is my one concern with him. However, he's a super strong stayer over this 3 mile trip. And if he's there or thereabouts jumping the last, I think he'll reel in his rivals. He's an unexposed type who's got plenty of upside. And last time up, he got beat by a horse called Handstands, who subsequently came out and won the Towton at Fosslas, a Grade 2 contest, and actually spoke alongside Dave Orton in the Sky Sports studios to Ben Pauling prior to last time, and Ben said that Handstands is held in the same regard as the Jukebox Man, so that kind of tells you the lofty reputation of that runner. I feel like Resplendent Grey, hopefully with a good jumping display, can win at Cheltenham on Saturday. There's also excellent racing in the US on Saturday night, with the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup at Gulfstream, and also here in Riyadh, actually, for those who are interested. There are 2 Group 2s on Saturday featuring the likes of Tom Marquand, James Doyle, Joel Rosario, Mike Smith, Mikel Barcelona. It's worth having a look at the cards in both in the US and over here in Saudi, as well as obviously the UK and Irish action. A quick reminder of the 3 offers that SBK are providing this week. Firstly, all new SBK users will get £40 in free bets when they sign up and bet £10. T's and C's do apply. Secondly, SBK are offering a 20% ACCA Boost on Saturday. You have to opt in to receive that. Make sure you opt in, don't miss out. And there needs to be 4 legs to qualify, but it's still a fantastic boost. And finally, SBK is providing a 25% winnings boost on the SBK sponsored Solerina Mares Novice Hurdle at Fairyhouse. That's the 1:38 p.m. on Saturday. Thank you very much for joining myself and Ross on this podcast. Best of luck with all of your selections, and to you, Ross, with your picks on Saturday, and we'll see you soon.